Two,
And admit.
one, let's go.
Done. Done, 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 done. All right. Hopefully everyone is muted. Yep, they're all muted. Alrighty. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another beautiful office hours on this fabulous Thursday. Um, for the rest of the world, Friday for me. I know it is nice and cold for all of you. However, it's nice and sunny for me. Not that I've stepped out of this room for the past 2 weeks, but that's another conversation. Now, welcome on. For those of you who are not aware of these individuals, I do not know why you're on this call. For those of you who are aware of these individuals, you know how difficult it is to get these people. Um, from threats, kidnapping, extortion, you name it, all of it has been pushed in, and that's when we're able to get some of them on. So, thank you all for joining. Thank you, all incredible people, for being here. The agenda of this conversation is going to be nothing but boring things to speak of. Kidding. It's going to be everything that's going to matter for you to make money in 2025. Eric said he'll be more than happy to hand over the keys to everything that I'm kidding. He's not going to do that either. Neither is Jesse or Nick. So, but we are going to go and kick off. The agenda of this conversation is going to be super exciting. We're going to be talking everything about Outbound, what's working from copy, cold email, deliverability, content, sales, strategies, techniques, tips, everything. Hopefully, for those who are aware or not aware, we have some incredible courses out from these three legends, plus one missing over here. Matt Lucero already on our application, so check it out. Everything about running an agency from Nick, everything about copywriting from Matt Lucero, everything about Clay and automations, as you'd expect from no one other than Mr. Nowoslawski, and everything about deliverability from Mr. Jesse coming up very soon. So that is that. So just in case, how about we get a quick 30-second kickoff on who each of you are? I will kick
Yeah,
off with
and
Eric.
yeah, sure, absolutely. So, thanks for having me. I don't know. I don't even know what to really say. We've been doing cold email as an agency for about 3 years now. Bob was actually the first call I made when I wanted to start my agency, and I was just asking him about services. And Jesse is actually a big reason why we even got started at all. I was essentially just copying Jesse's business model at the time, so it's kind of crazy now that 3 years later we're looking at this. I am user number 11 on Smartlead, and even when
Yeah.
people build our systems, they're like, "Oh, so sorry, that's a typo. There's no way he's actually user number 11." And it's like, "No, no, no, we are user number 11, and I think we're like the paying user number 2 or something." It was really fast for us to adopt Smartlead. And this month we're gonna crack our sending record. I'm already at 2.5 million cold emails sent just for this month. And I used to work at Clay. I did that for a year, and now we're also the largest users of Clay, and we help people leverage Clay and send, all of their outbound emails and get leads and things like that. So yeah, that's me.
Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. We've got a lot of single digits over here, actually, from Jesse, Nick, and Eric. But yeah, for those who don't know, I actually came across Eric when he was at Grant Cardone. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a fun catch up on that one. But sweet, Jesse, on to you, sir.
Yeah, Jesse Willett here, founder of Lead Magic. We have a email finder. If you're looking to get to your emails, find those emails, the quality, everything there. We're thankfully we just became the number one on the waterfall, which was a big accomplishment. We tried to do that. It took a while to win, but we finally got there, number one. So I know the gurus won't be happy about that one, but good to meet everybody and looking forward to this.
Awesome. And we've got none other than the GOAT, Mr. Nick Abraham.
Going on, guys? I'm Nick Abraham. I'm sure you guys probably know most of our stuff. I run Leadbird. We're a B2B lead gen agency similar to Eric's. Been using Smartlead forever. Funny enough, I actually built an email sending tool before Smartlead, but I totally threw it away once V hit me up and we started using Smartlead, and our replies literally like 5x overnight. And that was literally like the turning point for us in our business because like we work on performance. And so literally being able to 5x our replies from our own sending tool to then Smartlead was like game changer. And yeah, been just building a whole bunch of systems and processes to really make our agency scalable. We're actually about to cross 200 clients by the end of this month, active clients, which is like huge. So that's been a huge accomplishment. that we've been working for. And yeah, that's basically us. I think we've also built some of the other tools in the space, like the first ever catch-all verification tool. And yeah, things like that. So yeah, that's basically us in a nutshell.
Cool. So you guys know a thing or two, basically, from the looks of it. Something,
Something like
right?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. All right. For those over here, just as a note as well, not that this is actually going to be necessary, but I'm gonna have about 10 lucky winners who stay till the end who are gonna get 12,000 email verification credits each. I'm sorry, 6,000 email verification credits each. And we're gonna have another 10 lucky winners who are gonna get their own smart server as well. For those who are worrying or concerned and know what that is, you get your own privatized infrastructure that you can do whatever you want with. It's your own thing, it's your own space, it's your own value proposition, and it's your own reputation that you continue to build up and own with your own Google and Outlook account. Authentication as well as your own privatized, completely isolated infrastructure as well, if that matters for you. And we've got that going and winning for every single person who's going to stay up till the end. And the last 10 lucky winners are going to get a server each. So yeah, if you're looking to 6x your reply rates, that's the one for you. If you're looking to drop your bounce rates by 21%, that's the one for you. But that is the blah-de-da for me to do. Let's jump into it, everybody. We're going to do this as a bit of a panel. If you all have some questions, pop it in on the chat. We're going to try our best to have those questions. Okay, Victor, you probably want to wait for some time. We're going to do the questions towards the tail end. We love a king bean, but we're going to get towards that till the tail end as well. What is the cold email is the question that I keep asking myself too. But we're going to do this as a panel. So each person will go through a question. If some of you have a question that can be longer with your expertise in the space, please feel free to take that time. But let's start on to it right now. We'll kick off clockwise, then we'll go anti. Nick, from your side, what are you seeing as the biggest bottlenecks right now with respect to deliverability or campaign structuring?
Yeah, I think like copy right now is being fatigued a lot quicker than ever before. I think also being diversified on infra is extremely important. So right now, for us, like every time we launch a campaign, we also launch a inbox placement test with it, with the copy that we're using the exact same seeds that are in the actual campaign. And then we're able to make the changes and adjustments almost immediately. So like, if we launch the test and then we see that we're not inboxing in Microsoft, what we'll do is we'll just shorten the copy to be, way shorter, probably half the length it is. And that usually does a trick to get it to start inboxing in Outlook. And so that's kind of like one big impact that we've done in the recent times. And the other thing too is like, and I actually learned this from Eric, funny enough, like Eric's always like, hey, instead of trying to figure out all these little, tricks and trying to like figure out how to perfect deliverability, like just buy more infra. And I think that's the simplest way to go about it. It's like now, whenever we have a client and we onboard a client, we're just buying like 2x the amount of inboxes that we normally needed. And then we're just always rotating the infra. I also think that diversification is very big in this space. So it's like you can't just be with Google, you just can't be with Outlook, or you just can't be using SFTP. You need to use all three of them. And I think the goal here is just always say diversified infra and then be able to rotate infra and just have backups on backups. I think that's been like the biggest thing for us because like today Google might be inboxing better, but next week that will literally change. And so I think that's a big thing. And the other piece too is like you could sit here and nitpick on deliverability stuff all day long, but volume, what I found across all our clients usually just trumps all. So it's like, focusing on making sure you hit a certain amount of leads every single month more than anything is like the primary metric that we'll put on our CSMs. Cause like, even if you have a 10% reply rate, if you're only reaching out to like 1,000 leads, like that's not going to change your business. Right. And so that's kind of like what we've been thinking about on the deliverability side to kind of just stay ahead. I'm sure Jesse and Eric probably have more to add on to that.
Damn, you ran through that. All right, let's go. Jesse, on to you, sir.
Yeah, what I'm seeing right now, and I'm sort of getting this a lot from a lot of the agencies that I work with that sort of use our email product. We're seeing that if you're using your whatever your email finders are, you kind of want to understand what is so accept all or catch all domains. What people are doing is they're sort of there's some places that are like telling you that it's a valid email, but it's not. It's actually more of it's an accept all, but they found it somewhere, right? So you have to kind of understand that nuance. Like The accept all or catch all status is at the domain level, right? It's a decision that the IT team makes. Generally on Outlook, you'll see more accept alls, of course, just because the way the system's set up. But what people are doing is they're conflating both, and they don't realize that there's really it's really black or white on the validation side, right? It's okay, if this is a valid email, it's valid, it's a network valid, and you want to get the cost of that verification down really low, right? Like, so that saves you a lot of money, right? So just because and look, I probably even hurt myself with my own product, but a cost of validation is like 1/20th the cost of a valid email, right? Because it's so inexpensive to do that. I mean, with what we're selling it for either. But people are they're blending the two. And what happens is, I see people start out with like a group of new domains where you're basically on probation with all of the email servers. And what they do is they'll go in and they'll just start, oh, well, this tool told me it was valid. But the ones that are doing that a lot of them are getting incentivized by the vendors to sell credits of their software just because they want to, so it's sort of like they get paid if they give you a valid email. So they send you a valid catch-all. Now, a catch-all email, yeah, you can find it and we do that too, right? It's just a matter of understanding just the semantics of it. Like, even that 3 or 4% can really torch that domain in the beginning. So I see companies, they come in, they set up their customers, they start sending out to their valid, they don't realize that a valid network call is a way different temperature. It's like, I think the best analogy would be gasoline in your car, right? Like if you were running a premium sports car, you wouldn't be putting the 87 gas in it, right? That's what it is. So I think people are doing that early. They're not separating it out. And then that sort of compounds. And, remember, to keep going in cold email, you have to get replies because they stop you from going, right? So if you don't get the replies, it sort of compounds the other way and your campaigns start going south. So if you always talk, and I mean, out of anybody we've ever seen, I think Nick and, Eric are were the two best people that, when we were doing some analytics on Smartlead, it's just incredible that like the precision that these two agencies have had with, they are like so scientific about their process and getting valid emails into that campaign. But that's what I'm seeing is people sort of using tools in a way where a lot of the times it's the tool vendor that's kind of telling people that. So keep an eye on that. That's one of the problems I'm seeing right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. On to you, Mr. Eric. I'd love to hear your
Yeah,
thoughts
and
on this.
so it's so funny. I used to people would reach out about email deliverability and then they would want a coaching call or whatever it might be. And I used to maybe take them and try to help them out. And I've just stopped. Like if somebody wants a coaching call and they ask about email deliverability, I just tell them, we're not doing anything fancy. You're going to completely waste your money. Don't pay me. Just listen to what Smartlead is telling you to do. Use multiple ways to validate your emails. And so we use again multiple ways, including Lead Magic, in order to keep our emails valid as well too. And then, like Nick said, we just set up way more infrastructure than we think that we need. And then we just rotate the inboxes when things are going wrong. So for instance, there was a customer that we just know that if we send a certain amount of emails, we know that we're just going to get a certain amount of replies. And so I even had a customer who they got 2 interested leads on Monday, got nothing on Tuesday, and then got nothing on Wednesday. And I just went back to my team and was like, hey, rotate these inboxes because, this shouldn't be happening. We just got a positive response an hour into the sending day from a company with 1,200 employees. And it's just because the inboxes were burnt and we just rotate them out. And so that definitely using Google, we use Hypertide as well too. And we'll have the Google inboxes, the Hypertide inboxes, and we'll kind of switch back and forth between all of them. I find that there's no secret to this right now. It's literally just keeping extra infrastructure as kind of an insurance policy for yourself.
Love it. It's a good
Fair
move.
enough. Makes sense. It's a very good move. Now let's go ahead and talk about, I think, Jesse, you've spoken about, sorry, Nick, you've spoken about rotating mailboxes. Could you jump a bit more into that?
Yeah, and before I talk about that too, I think another thing that a lot of people aren't doing is like you should just be scanning the MX records of all your leads. And if they have like security softwares like Barracuda, Proofpoint, Mimecast, even if your TAM is small, just remove them for the beginning of the campaign. And then if you need to hit those leads just because like you can't find more leads from whatever software you're pulling them from, throw them in. I think that's like a good thing. Another thing that Jesse recommends that I find really smart too is like there's a lot of validation tools that don't give like they'll just give you back valid or invalid. They don't really separate out the risky and catch-alls. And what you should do is like hit your valids first, and then if you need to like validate your catch-alls, and whatever tool you're using gives you like catch-all that might not bounce, throw those in at the end of the campaign versus the beginning, because like any bounces that you get whenever you first launch a campaign like almost guarantees that your domains and inboxes are going to get burnt out a lot quicker. So I think that's something to kind of always keep in mind. V, what was your question? Sorry, I totally went on a tangent.
No, it was like you've spoken about rotating mailboxes.
Yeah.
Is there a specific strategy that you follow?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I know I'll obviously love Eric to jump in as well, because he has a very different approach, or he's changed the approach a fair bit. So
Yeah.
I would love to know what your approach is and how you're doing it.
Yeah. So we'll do a couple things. So the first one is, so we host all of our data in Airtable. So whenever we launch our automations, it's very easy for us to like, whenever, our team is literally clicking a button to draft campaigns, it'll go, choose the next set of inboxes for them. And so we're rotating campaign to campaign. And we always make our campaigns only run in 30-day sprints. But for everyone else that's watching right now, what I would do is like, if let's say you have 20 inboxes and you use 10 per campaign, like tag the first 10 as like group A, and then the next 10 as like group B, and then just make sure you stay organized with the naming conventions of your campaigns. So like, client one, campaign one, group A. And then whenever you launch campaign two that you should be using group B. And then you're able to rotate that a little bit more frequently. And I think another thing that's really important is like every time a campaign ends as well, try to run an inbox placement test. And if you see that like all your emails are missing, that typically means that like that inbox is flagged. And like, people always try to think about like, okay, what's the lifetime on an inbox and all that thing. And I think that's impossible to calculate. It just depends on your offer. Like some offers are just so oversold that, you're more likely to get your emails marked as spam, right? Versus new ones that aren't. And so like, I don't think there's a straight number to it. That's why like we just rotated campaign to campaign. At the end of every campaign, we also just run an inbox placement test to see if like we need to, make a new order and just shelf the one that we have right now to add it into the next set. And then the other thing that we'll do is whenever it's not being used in rotation, we try to increase the warm up on it. And then just let that sit with no outbound for 30 days. And that usually does the trick for a lot of things. And yeah, just having like a really clean, simple process. Like don't try to over engineer it. Don't try to do the Airtable stuff. Like just get it working with just using Smartlead and the tags. And then you'll be able to kind of build the system for it in Airtable and all that stuff and kind of have it automated. But yeah.
Cool. Lovely. Awesome. I wanted to take one question for Eric. What's your strategy behind follow-ups when someone doesn't reply?
Yeah, so I find that we've tried a lot of different follow-up strategies, and the positive response rate on follow-ups is nowhere near the positive response rate on your first email that you send. And so I see Nick shaking his head, so I'm just making sure like our data is the same on that. And so for our follow-ups, I basically see follow-ups as email one, we're trying to just put our best foot forward and send the best email we possibly can, because that's the highest possibility that we're going to be able to get a positive response. In email two, we will mention some things that we didn't have time to mention in the email, because of course you're going to be like just cutting your copy, so that's as short as possible. So if there's something else we wanted to mention in email two, we'll do that. And then in email three, we'll kind of break up and we'll be like, hey, Jesse, it might not be you who we should be reaching out. Should I try reaching out to this person or this person? And we'll use Clay to just name other people in the company. And that's basically our follow-up strategy right now. We're playing with Claygen currently to try to be able to send some kind of industry insight as a follow-up email as well too. So if you're reaching out to a founder, like if you're reaching out to V, and you could say, in your follow-up email, hey, by the way, did you see this company hired a new head of sales? Maybe you should reach out to them about, Outbound. We're trying to put insights into our follow-up emails so that it's more value driven, and then it's threaded, so then they'll see the offer ahead of time. We've nailed the job changers thing in the right industry, but getting it to be nice with the other signals is kind of tough. But that's our follow-up strategy right now, and we're nascently pushing into sending an insight to only like the CEO, the marketing team, and the sales team. Because if you reach out to an operations person, they're not really going to care that, you know, a new person was hired. But that's something we're dipping our toes in right now and seeing early success.
Fair enough. All right. That makes perfect sense. Thank you for that. Now, I want to take on a hot topic that a lot of people have, and I think everyone wants to know, which I'd love each of your strategies on. And we'll kick off with Jesse. What's your mailbox infrastructure look like? And where do you get these from? You don't need to name names. We'll keep it neutral.
Yeah. So we're doing a little bit of like right now for the we're not running as many campaigns of course. We do have a couple of people that we were just running friends of the group or our own stuff that we do. We're doing what we've tried to do a lot of is really tried to keep a couple of workspaces that are got some high reputation, like we've been sending for a long time on them. So we know the reply rates are pretty good. We've had some pretty good success on them. So Gmail, and we like to really go after, if we're going to really do it, we're going to go after, because we don't really send as many right now, but Gmail to Gmail to Gmail. So we're kind of like curating what companies have a inbox where it's valid Google, and we sort of target that group because it's really seems to be. It almost feels like they're letting the emails in a little bit because of the it's a good way for them to sell the Gemini, right? Like, so on the side, like it almost feels like it's like IKEA. You're building your own spam filter now, right? So that's what I think is there. So we're doing that a lot. I've definitely talked to Hypertide and Scaled Mail, and we've got a couple of other things we're trying right now. If you know, you know, kind of stuff. But yeah, it's always
Fair
a good
enough.
question.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. I know it's always going to be one that some don't want to give away, etc. But Nick, from your side, what do you suggest? I won't ask you what you do, but what do you suggest?
And this is more on like what info we're using, right?
Yeah. Mailbox infra.
Yeah. So like I think being diversified is huge. So and people hate me when I say this because it doesn't always get the best reply rate. So we use Hypertide. They provide Google, Microsoft, and Azure. So that's like and the Google and Microsoft, like they're always going to deliver better than any SMTP. I've never not seen that happen. And they just last longer too. And so like that's where I would say a majority of our clients' infra is always going to be stapled in. But here's the thing, right? Like Google and Microsoft are always fighting cold emails. We'll have tenants that randomly get disabled. We'll have accounts that just randomly get shut down, and you just constantly run into issues. And what happened for us last year was like we would have just like random days and weeks where we would have outages for clients, and that's like kind of a really kind of like risky thing for us from a business perspective. And so what we also backfill with is Mailreef, and that's just like an SMTP that's very easy to use. And like I don't think Mailreef ever outperforms. I love Mike, by the way. He's a great guy. I don't think it ever will outperform Google or Microsoft in a lot of capacity, but it's great to know that like if my Google accounts go down, if my Microsoft accounts go down, I'm able to use Mailreef and be able to send, emails and at least get some replies going and not just have like, a week of silence. And it's usually never always just a week of silence. It's like you're gonna have 2 weeks of silence because like you're gonna have to buy and set up new infra today, and then it's like you have to wait 2 weeks for it to kind of be used for that client again. And like imagine you kick off with a new client, they've already waited the 2 weeks, you find out in the when you launch a campaign that the infra is not working because it got disabled, and now you got to go to the client and say, hey, like there's another 2 weeks before we launch again. Like you're going to churn that client within the first 45 days. We've been there, we've seen that. And so it's just a terrible feeling. And so, yeah, so what we use is Hypertide. We'll use all three inbox providers that they give us. We'll use Mailreef. And then we also just have a huge batch of non-branded inboxes. I think every time Pork Bun drops a .co sale, we'll just load up on domains and just set up a whole bunch of Google and Microsoft inboxes with just random aliases and just let that sit in the back burner. And that's also like another thing, like, if a client's Hypertide inboxes from Azure, Google, and Microsoft all go down at the same time, we'll be able to backfill with, these non-branded inboxes that we have and Mailreef. And that'll hold them over for the next 2 to 3 weeks till we can get those new inboxes and new infra set up. So that's kind of what we've done. And actually just saw someone say they're testing personal Gmail accounts. That's actually something that we've been testing recently too, as well. I was actually giving V an update on that. Does it actually lead to like leads converting? Probably not as much. just because like it's a Gmail, which looks a little sketch, but they do inbox at a decent rate. And so like my thought process there is like, if the client has a really massive TAM, which is like all SMBs or something of some sort. So like think of like a business lending offer, like just run with those because it'll inbox pretty consistently. And it's more of like a spray and pray kind of thing, but that's kind of the name of the game for some of those offers. So yeah, that's our info in a nutshell. I'm sure Eric is very similar in our case, but yeah, we'll pass it off to Eric and let's hear what you got.
Yeah, and so I would say easily 60 to 70% of our volume is all being sent through Google inboxes. We use Mo from Alphoric to be helping us setting those up. And then we also have like 30% or 40% of the volume that we're paying for people for on Hypertide as well too. And so pretty simple. We do the same thing that Nick does, batching them so that we'll say, hey, you know, we're using these 20 accounts right now, and then we're going to use this Hypertide domain with it as well, which that'll come with the 50 accounts and things like that. And so we definitely batch it as well like that. Oh, and .co works. Somebody asked in the chat. You guys are asking a lot of questions in the chat. I try to get to them in between things. But .co we find works, and we do the same thing. I think I have like 2,000 inboxes that are just generic, and they're like, if you ever get an email from Camille, that's me. You know, I'm not going to say the last name, but yeah, that's we have a lot of generic inboxes for ourselves as well too.
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing on. I was just going to add one thing that I've noticed on. So one of the things that has helped our workspaces and when we're using like the Gmail, something that a lot of places aren't doing is demarc reject. So if you look at the whole group, like if you took all of the .com MX records, the number one, so one of the things that spam filters really are looking for is your authentication, because that's going to dictate like how serious you are about keeping your own emails safe. So of course you want to play as hard as you want to play that card as hard as you can, right? Because that's going to be where they're going to test the most. And one of the things that is not widely adopted but should be is demarc reject. Now, you have to be super careful when you turn this on, and because what demarc reject tells the server, or like the other side of it, is it tells it don't accept my email unless it's an authenticated email. So what happens is sometimes the authentication doesn't come for a couple of days on those inboxes. So you have to basically, like you could be sending to dust and not getting any emails in, right? Because demarc reject will not let your email go to the other person's inbox. So there's a little bit of a nuance there in making sure that that's right. And it's a little bit of an extra ops work. You have to, you could set up some webhooks. We've done that. Like I can share some of that with the group. But basically, there's only 7% of the inboxes that are across all of .com MX records that have demarc reject on. So it definitely helps a ton because it's an extra level of security that the providers feel a lot better about demarc reject. So if you have good, and I mean, these, I've learned from these two guys, but like if you could run an agency, if you're running an agency, you got to do this. Like demarc reject is, I mean, quarantine is what most people do, or not. I mean, not obviously that doesn't help you as much, right? But you're going to get a much more favorable deliverability on demarc reject because of the authenticated messages that Google and Microsoft, everybody really values that demarc policy as being one of the the core tenets of deliverability.
Yeah, lovely. But just keep in mind, everyone, if you start off with that, you're gonna have them rejected. So wait for them.
Yeah, you
for
got
a
to be
few
careful. You
days,
got to
post
be
that.
super careful how you enable it because, like you said, you might not have authentication set up right. So if you don't, it can backfire on you, and you'll get nothing through. So it's a little bit of a catch 22. But if you can get that right over time, it will make a big difference.
Sweet. I have a question for all of you that's popped up a fair bit right now as well. Um, there's a lot of questions coming in, so we'll get them bit by bob, but then we'll just go through some of the top ones that we wanted to cover through as well. With respect to the campaign structures that you're seeing working, Eric, I'll start off with yourself. Is it AI? Is it a certain type of setup that you're doing? Is it an industry that's working well for you? Open-ended question so that I don't like lock you into giving an answer that you don't want to give.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you get where I'm coming from. I'd love to know what's working and what you think other people should emulate to the best they can.
I always say that it's like what email can you send where the recipient would say, okay, this is worth my time? Because nothing at all is as important as the offer that you're sending to people. So
Yep.
we have private equity customers that we're literally just emailing people, and we're literally all we're saying is, are you looking to sell your business in the next 6 to 12 months? Literally, that's the whole email. And we get positive responses every single day for something like that. Because if you tell people, I've got a bag of money potentially to give you, are you interested? Everybody's, well, not everybody, but a good fraction of people are going to say that they're interested. We have run crazy AI generated campaigns that get zero responses because people either the offer is too commoditized or there's just other things that's really tough about it. This is why we started launching free campaigns for people, because everyone thinks that it's an amazing lead magnet for Growth Engine X, but Growth Engine X doesn't need more lead magnets. Growth Engine X needs better customers. And so I just made the decision where I was just thinking to myself, I bet we can tell who has a good offer and who doesn't based off of the very first campaign that we launched for them. And I mean, so far we've been right, and we get multiple customers like that. Their LTV, I mean, I've been doing this for 2 months. I'm hoping their LTV is going to be extended longer because we know that their offer is working and things like that. There's a premise that I talk through customers with if things aren't working. So if for anybody who, I'm not an agency owner. I can't just reject somebody. I like need to be working with this offer. I think that there's three different levels of messaging usually that you need to be testing on. Where there's just like straight down the middle messaging, where you're including the mechanism that you help people buy and the outcome that gets created with that. I help generate leads for companies. I'm not allowed to say the companies publicly, whatever. I generate leads for clay.com, and we get 3 enterprise interested responses every single day. And we use cold email to be able to do it. Would you want to chat? Like that is like a very basic, just like we use cold email. Clay.com is one of my case studies. And that's just straight down the middle messaging. If that doesn't work, then the two paths that we go through, I like to call chunking up and chunking down. So one, chunking up, maybe they're just not interested in cold email. Maybe they're not interested in SEO. Maybe they're not interested in conversion rate optimization or whatever your service is. Just talk about the outcome and take the mechanism completely out of it. So I helped clay.com, close a deal with, I think we did 1Password was one of them. So I helped clay.com close a deal with 1Password. Would you want to talk about how we did it? Don't talk about the mechanism because they might, as soon as they see the mechanism, they might just get turned off by the mechanism. Just talk about the outcomes. Sometimes we'll even try stacking a ton of outcomes into a campaign where we'll say, hey, check out below my PS line. I added 4 case studies of how we helped customers. And like, we'll just hammer them with a ton of social proof. Or then, if that's chunking up, then chunking down is then talking about there are individual things that make up Smartlead that make it so great. There's individual things that make up Lead Magic that make it so great. There's individual things that make up Leadbird that make it so great. Instead of talking about just cold email, you could talk specifically about, hey, we built our own tools so that before we launch our campaigns, we can validate catchalls like no other agency can because we built the only real catchall verification. I'm not sure if that's really the best angle to be going with there, but that's like the like individual things that can help you you know stand out from the rest of the messaging as well too. So when you're doing your testing, you want to start with that straight down the middle, but if that doesn't work, try chunking up and chunking down and take it from there.
Lovely. We got that. Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Nick? Let's jump into that. So just to help you out, top level question to ask you is what are you seeing with respect to campaign structures,
Yeah.
industries, types? What can you share that you see is working really well for you that others can use, learn from, get inspired by?
Yeah, so I'll say from two perspectives. So like if you're running cold emails for yourself, like the best thing that you could do is not even worry about like your infra, your copywriting or anything. It's literally like how can I make my offer, the thing that I'm selling, so valuable to where it's a no-brainer to the person that's receiving the email. I think that's where you should spend all your time and effort into it and just constantly keep split testing. And like the thing about using a lot of these like really cool like clay strategies and stuff is that they amplify a great offer, but they won't make a terrible offer just convert like crazy, right? And I think there's a happy medium too. It's like what I call scaled personalization. So like there's like merge fields that you can make at scale that are very easy to do that will just naturally take like a very like mediocre offer and just generate more positive replies and just like more intent. And like those are like grabbing the case studies off of people's websites, mentioning a colleague in their same department, giving them a compliment on the recommendation that they got on LinkedIn. like things like that. You can throw that into any campaign at scale. Even if you have a terrible offer, you're still more likely to get a positive reply from that than just like, taking that average offer with like no personalization. So I think that's like something to kind of think about. And so like the reason why I say this is like as an agency owner, you're going to get clients that don't always have product market fit and have really good offers. And so like just think about all the different scaled personalizations you could add to their offer, so that you can run more cold emails at volume and still get good results. So I think that's something to kind of consider. And then what we've realized too is that the offers that do the best are the ones that just aren't really sold naturally via cold email. So like I'll give you an example. We have a lot of weird offers that print. One of them is like we have a customer that sells pallets to like manufacturing companies, like that prints. And like we don't do any kind of personalization in there. It's literally the dumbest campaign in the world and it does great. We have other clients that sell like yoga classes as like a HR benefit kind of thing. We have one of my cousins, funny enough, he runs an e-commerce company where they sell painting kits and he sells them as like a way for, and we use cold emails to literally sell it for him. He sells it to like companies as a way to do like employee retreats and stuff like that. Like that prints. So there's just like a lot of unnatural cold email. Like if you're trying to sell like SEO or web development, like it's super hard. Like you're gonna have to send 2 to 5,000 emails to get like a positive reply. You could send 100 emails for an unnatural offer and get a positive reply. And so yeah, I think that's like kind of the things that we've seen work. But yeah, I'm a big fan of just like super simple, short, direct copywriting when it comes to like the actual copy of the campaign, and then just like trying to figure out like what are those like simple variables, scale personalizations that I can add into there to just kind of give it an extra boost. And that just simplifies the operations for us. Like, all our CSMs can launch campaigns really easily. And yeah, that's kind of like something that we do at Leadbird. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for that. I want to go jumping into one or two quick questions that people have asked in the audience and then working backwards from that. For those of you who are doing paper booking, for example, or paper meeting, how exactly are you setting up your offers, your guarantees, and how does that flow look like for you right now? More so than anything, if you're trying to do that, how are you recovering a dead lead, per se? If you're trying to close a lead right now and that lead's not responding, you have 1,000 leads, you're trying to set it up where you're doing paper book meetings, for example. How are you setting it up so that you are driving a more incentivized system for your own business in the sense that you are in the end running a profitable company versus always being on the tail end of, oh shit, I'm not able to generate enough leads with the customer because it's a performance-based business model. Nick, if you don't mind jumping into that, because I know you've done front and back on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's like a couple of things to think about there. So if you're going to run a performance-based agency, like you have to make sure that you're charging, or you have to build your system and your financial model on the bet that you'll never lose money. And so like what I mean by that is like you should be like infra's pretty expensive now. Scraping leads, getting inboxes, having all these rotations and all these things in place, like it is pretty expensive. And so like you should be charging all your clients a technology fee that covers at the bare minimum the infra cost. And so then it's like, okay, if you don't generate result, like you're breaking even at the worst case, right? And you may be a little bit profitable on that. And I think that's very important. The other thing too is like I see people that do pay per appointment, and we did that when we initially started, but it gets really hard to scale just because like you're gonna have to balance like 10 different calendars. So you might have like your inbox managers accidentally book into the wrong calendar. And it just kind of gets hard too. Because like if you're just doing strictly email as follow-ups, like your appointment set rate is going to be naturally a little bit worse. I think you should be just sending all your positive replies to their sales team or to the founder that you're working with and letting them control it. And if you're able to do like phone number validation or enrichment through like Lead Magic or something, and be able to give them that to the client, like they'll have a much higher chance of setting more appointments, and you'll be just sending way more leads their way, so they're happier too. So it's like a win-win all the way through. I think the clients that are like, no, like I only want appointments set are usually the clients that I try to avoid because like, they don't really want to put much effort in. And I think like for any relationship with an agency, like you have to put your fair share of the work in. It's not just going to be completely delegated and offloaded. And if it was like, that's someone selling a dream. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I think about how to structure all the agreements. I think the other thing too is like you also run into a lot of clients that nitpick on like leads, like, hey, this isn't a lead, or this wasn't, I shouldn't be billed for this, or this guy didn't show up to appointment. Just be super upfront in your MSAs and SOWs to really state exactly what a lead is, when something is considered billable, when something is considered a credit. So it's like, we always tell our clients, like, if anybody replies to the lead list that you approved, and the lead list is going to match your ICP, and if you approved of it, and we, get someone that replies with positive intent off of that lead list, they're going to be considered billable. Obviously, there's some that, just are weird customers in the sense where they will reply back yes, and then the client will reply back to them, and then they'll say something like, hey, I don't want this anymore. If a client sends me that, obviously we're going to credit it. But if like you just kind of leave it up in the air, you're leaving yourself to get screwed. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I would recommend just like running a pay per lead gen offer, and how I would build like the entire process. But yeah.
Fair enough. Wow. All right. Blueprint. Got it. Um, Eric, do you do pay per lead on your side?
No, not at all. No, not at
All
all.
right, so then that question won't even be valid
Yeah,
on
I'm
that
out.
front.
Yeah.
But I will jump in another question on the on a clear automation perspective. Eric, sorry to make this the clear representative question over here, but perceptive to you going ahead and setting up a clear automation or a clear workflow right now. How do you go ahead and set it up so that you are um, I guess a right phrased question over here is, do you set up a Clay instance per client of yours? Do you use a shared Clay instance? Do you share Clay instances with your clients? Do you give them access to the information when, they they can technically own that data? How does that work for you on that front?
Yeah, and so I'm gonna have to just be careful about how I answer this.
Oh, we can skip the question. It's all right. It's not a big deal. It's not a big
No,
deal.
it's just because so it used to be something that Clay was just like, oh yeah, cool, do whatever you want. But Clay is moving in much more of a direction that if you're an agency owner, they want you to be buying different plans for the
Yep,
customers.
sure.
So
Yes.
we're even like towing the line here. So the only reason I'm saying I have to be careful about this is because I don't want anybody on this call going back to the Clay team and being like, well, Eric said that we could do this. Um, and so in the
Free
past,
licenses.
yeah, exactly. And
HTTP.
so in the past, we've always set them up under our Clay account, which is a big reason why we're the largest Clay user on the platform, is because the big guys who are also users like Cold IQ have them split amongst other people. And so we're gonna start getting into that, but we have so many API calls that we could usually get them on one of the lower plans and then just run everything in there and not necessarily need the Clay credits. Like we just paid annually for Clay and we don't use any of the Clay credits. Actually, in fact, if I could turn off the ability to use Clay credits, I would, because all we do is just with API requests and our own keys and different things like that.
There we go.
And so same thing with what Nick was saying. If you're doing pay per lead, you definitely want to put some kind of technology fee in there. Like if you have a customer who doesn't want to take on any of the risk of even just the technology fee, then just don't work with them, because it's like, oh, okay, so even if you were to do this yourself, you're still going to have to buy these things. So I guess you don't actually want to be doing these things. And so because we charge a retainer, we pay for everything on our side. But yeah, then the big thing is we're just transferring API keys and different things like that. And then if they are still billed in our account, it's so easy with the template feature to just give them the workflows, and we don't hold back from giving anybody any workflows or anything.
Fair play. All right. I'll take one final question from my side, and then we're gonna go into the community questions. There's just so much I've lost control of how many questions people have asked. Jesse, from your front, I'd love to understand what people can do perceptive to ensuring the length of their mailboxes sustains a long time. In terms of the most actionable things that they actually set up right now, what can they do? What can't they do? Are we meant to use tenants? Are we meant to use resellers? Are we meant to use SMTP? Yeah, anything that you can jump in on that front would be great. Again,
Yeah.
I'm keeping this
So
very
I think,
open-ended for a reason.
yeah, I think right now I'm seeing that sending just a pure valid emails is just a huge difference maker, because what you have to worry about is like you think about like how the spam filters are thinking, right? The second you like, have you ever been typing an email and you typed in the wrong email? Like like think about like what a bounce actually is. You're typing in the wrong email to somebody you're emailing. Like that just doesn't happen very often. You know what I mean? Like you kind of need to tell, and like and it's funny because like we're running, I don't know, a couple 100 million validations a month. Like when we validate emails, we're validating it twice. Every single time we do it, we validate it twice because we just have to check a random email first, right? Like that's how validation works. You have to test just some random email first, like that doesn't exist, that you 100% know doesn't work. And then you test the real email. But you have to think about like how they're figuring because the problem is like a time versus compute problem, like where they only have a certain amount of time that they can check if it's a spam. They feel it's spam. So what they have to do is they have to isolate it down to like where they think it's coming from. And if they're looking at it the right way, they're going to say like, okay, these hard bounces right now are just they destroy you right out of the gate. So if you see any bounces, like use the untracked replies box in Smartlead and look for hard bounces because if you see hard bounces coming in, I mean, you've got to take these serious because on a new domain, it's so vital to the health of that, right? Nobody just kicks off like your pattern is so bad if you see those bounces, right? Like that just it could not be worse, right? It just looks so horrible from a domain health reputation perspective. Like you're sitting there, nobody types in the wrong email address. It just doesn't
Fair
happen,
enough.
right? Nobody,
Fair enough.
think
Fair
about
enough.
your HR team. They're emailing people that they have their email address. So it's like, don't, you got to think about that and you got to be very vigilant on that. And especially in the beginning. So I think what people do is they have a lot of unforced errors, right? When I talk to the companies, and look what they're doing, they're like, hey, what are we doing the right things? What I do is when I look at people smartly, there's a couple of endpoints that I hit, and I can tell you right away, like, oh my God, you're way off here, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a ton of bounces. Your authentication is not set up right. And these are good agencies too that I go through. And I'm like, I can't believe like you have all of these things and all of these like processes in place, but you don't have something right before checking it when that email campaign goes out. You need to have something there that checks every single thing every time. And leaving that to a person is a bad idea because then you're going to blame the person every single time. And I'm going to tell you, it's not a person thing. It's a technology thing. You have to design it like your engineers build code, really is what you have to.
Fair. 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 Love it. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. For any of you that have questions, this is your golden moment. I think Victor, you had your hand up, so feel free to put your hand up. Little icon at the react at the bottom right to get your hand up. So we're gonna get okay. Got it. So there's some questions that have to come through. Everybody, I want to just flag it right now before we add you on a spotlight and you ask your questions. One question alone only. I apologize if I kick you out. Please, if you have hate mail to send, I'll give you Nick's email address. You can send it there. He'll write it through to me. Or Eric, that's perfectly fine. So thank you. We've got a ton of questions. We're going to open it up, but just before we do that, like I said, just one question, not per person on the panel, just one question. That's all. Um, okay, the dots are not stopping. Cool. We're gonna start off. Victor, I'm just gonna spotlight you right now.
Hey guys, thank you for taking the time to do this. I'm going to run an email campaign for our private equity firm. So Eric, I know you hit on this and you said, your message was super simple. Are you looking to sell in 6 to 12 months? What else have you seen that's been successful? Like what do you have in your subject line? What else would you include in your message? Is there any like company specific personalization that we should think about?
Yeah.
Do you have a signature as well?
Well, of course we use a signature, but it's just like looking for the owner or like question for the owner is usually the subject line. Then I was kind of just simply talking about it. We A/B test all the time the message that I said, but then we'll also say, hey, I was looking to call you at phone number, but I figured email would be easier, and we'll put their phone number in there. And then we'll say, are you looking to sell your business in the next 6 to 12 months? whatever else they can say. And then we'll put in a PS line. We'll be like, I noticed this restaurant was pretty close to you. If we ever do a deal together, I'd be happy to take you out to it. And we kind of put the personalization all together there. The only thing that outperforms that copywriting from a PE perspective is if the private equity firm has some kind of great social proof that they can add in of why they should be selling to them. So one time we were working with garage.com and they were looking to buy garage door companies. And so we were literally like, look, we've operated 7. We're looking to platform. We know this really well and we know how to get you a second bite of the apple. And then that outperformed so that's like our base messaging. And if there's any social proof that can go into the messaging of why they should pick that firm to help them sell their business or invest or whatever, that's what we add in.
Another thing to add to that as well is if the founder has a really good background, like they're ex Google, ex Facebook, or anything of that sort, that's also really good to tag in. And so we did that for one of our clients that I don't know if it was a search fund or if it was a PE firm, can't remember. But yeah, like we would literally just say like, I'm ex Facebook or ex Meta, and like that helped pick up the responses a ton just because it's like authority.
Is all that personalization done through Clay? Like, can be done through Clay?
Yeah. The phone number.
Oh, wow. We lost Eric. Sorry, Victor. Once Eric's back, we'll get him to go ahead and answer that question.
One thing I'm getting I'm getting a lot of those like buyer. I think they all. Hello.
Oh, am I back?
Are you back on, Eric? You had a good minute and a half lag. Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah. All that's in Clay, and it's very easy to do. You can just ask AI what the top restaurant is in the city and the state, and you're gonna be fine.
Cool. Lovely. Jesse, you're saying something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, look, we're seeing I'm seeing it's so funny whenever there's a good like Eric comes up with some of the best campaigns in the world, and then I see it, and then I'm like, it's almost like literally within like 2 weeks, I start seeing that campaign everywhere. So it's like Eric sets I always go to his content too, and I'm like, but I think on the private equity side, if I was going to do that, like one of the things that is totally random, and I'm getting a lot of these now for like people want me to take a VC on or something like that. We're all set, thanks, bye, don't need it. But the real thing that's coming in is like, why is this company randomly reaching out to me to buy the business? Like, I would want to know, I would want to put something in there. Like, they're looking for like why? You know what I mean? Like, what have you like? Are you just literally sending this out to every single person, or is it if I get an email and it doesn't look like it? I mean, if it looks like it was sent to a lot of people, then I don't want it, right? Like, so that's like your mentality of like when you're reading these emails from on the other side or whatever. But if you're reading them that way, you want to see like, well, we're looking to buy businesses of this many, maybe it's this many employees, maybe it's a specific niche. There has to be something there that gives them the confidence that you're not like sending this out blanket, right? Because even if you want the offer and if you're sending it out, like if it's a broad audience that can accept it, you're going to feel like you're getting duped into replying to a cold email. That's like the mindset that somebody's going to take out of that. At least I've found that it's my, what my data has been showing. And that's how I personally feel when I get a cold email. I don't think I get one good cold email a week, right? Like I don't think I get, and everybody who emails me, I mean, I just send them a coupon code to Lead Magic. So it's like, but it's one of those things that I'm watching and I'm like, you better have something in there that's like relevant to that person. Otherwise, it's like, what's the point?
All about relevance. All about relevance. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's got to be relevant to them, and it's got to seem like it's real and genuine. Like I just think people are just so sick of, it's gotten a lot harder.
Welcome back, Nick. You look slimmer since the last time. Yep, all good. Erica, we know that. We'll keep it capped to a few minutes. There's a lot of questions, so we'll run through it quickly. Nikita, feel free to go for your questions. Just FYI, everyone's been very kind dedicating the time over here, so we won't be able to take all the questions. We'll take as many as we can, and then we'll let some of these good people go soon. But yeah, Nikita, floor is yours.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Jesse. I have a really simple one question. What do you think? Which copy now works better? 50 words, 75 words, or 100 plus words? or it doesn't matter?
For the length of the email,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah. So this is one of those things that it's like there's nothing that I can say about this. This is purely a math problem, and it's like you should just test it and just see what happens. Like who knows? Like more context might help the reply rate. Less context is maybe fine. This isn't like a guru can answer a question kind of thing. It's purely a math equation.
And it's going to change completely offer to offer. It's
Yeah,
not.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's never like yeah, it's just going to change every single time. Like there's never going to be a
Depends what
constant.
you're selling. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too to keep in mind, guys, is like don't overcomplicate this stuff. Like literally just start sending. You'll see the data, and it's really obvious like what adjustments you need to make. Like people always trying to figure out like what's the best subject line, like what's the best CTA, and it's like, dude, none of that. Like it really doesn't make a huge impact. Just start sending, and you'll be able to kind of figure it out. As long as you just follow the fundamentals that we all preach about, like it works.
Fair play, fair play. All right, thank you, Mikita. We are going to go for boys. 1 second. We'll just get you on, mate. At the spotlight. There you go. Go for it.
Hello, how's it going? Jesse, Nick, Vaibhav. Actually, I had a question from Eric, but he's not here, so
Yeah,
I'll
you
probably
just
ask
had
you
to
from
drop
Nick.
off, but we'll get the questions through nonetheless. But
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
make
it's
sure it gets answered. Yeah.
got it. So, given my extensive experience in B2B outbound and cold email strategy, I wanted to tap into the perspective about something really intriguing, especially for Nick Abraham, right? In your view, what are the most and unexpected yet profoundly effective psychological triggers that make cold emails irresistible, even if it's the most saturated and the most competitive industries? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to, even if you're in a competitive industry, like you just have to make your offer a no-brainer. And then the next thing I would do is like, okay, if I can't get my client to figure out how to make the offer better, then I'm like, okay, how can I add more scaled personalization to it? Because it just stands out from all the other people that are selling it. And then I would say, the third thing that you could do is just figure out how can I add like social proof or authority to it. So it's like, if you're selling here's a great example, right? Like if we all send cold emails for our cold email agencies, like Eric will probably outperform us all because he has the client roster that everybody knows, regardless if they know who Eric or me or Jesse is. Because he's worked with companies like Clay and some others that I won't mention, but or billion-dollar publicly traded companies, right? And so if he's able to say, hey, I've worked with Clay, this publicly traded company, this publicly traded company, and I can get you leads. Would you be interested? Like he's just going to kill us all, right? And so that's something I just kind of keep in mind. And yeah, that's kind of how I think about it.
All right, amazing.
Cheers, Moise. Thanks, mate. And thank you for the one question. Lovely. That's it. That's everyone. Ask Moise tips for his jawline. All right. We're gonna take Abdallah in.
All right. Thanks so much, guys, for this session. It was a great one. I actually had a question specifically for Eric because he mentioned that part, but maybe everyone else can answer. And I think main thing that I'm trying to get to here, because this is a big focus now in terms of, Eric mentioned chunking up and chunking down, so changing around the strategy and the different kind of approaches in an email. And I think the main question I'd have is not how we're going to create, the chunk ups, the chunk downs, kind of like when should it be the right time to be like, oh, okay, this is the time to chunk up, and what are kind of like the signs, the insights that I'm getting from the data to be like, oh, okay, I should, not mention, the mechanism here and then only mention, the outcome. I think it's kind of like when and how many emails does it have to be for me to be like, okay, this is when I should start doing this. Specifically
Yeah.
about, chunking up, chunking down, and changing around basically changing around the copy.
Yeah, no, great question. So like, and this is the answer that you're not gonna like, but I have found never a simple formula to, like be able to strategically say like by this point I should change everything, right? The way I think about it is like everything comes back down to the offer, right? Good offers will work almost immediately on cold email as long as you're doing the fundamentals. And so like if you launch your first campaign and you've sent a significant amount of volume, and when I say significant I would say like reaching out to about 1,500 bare minimum leads, so the 1,500 leads have, and so that could be a total of 3,000 emails if you're doing a two-step sequence and no one's replied. That's when like if this campaign is going to win or not. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is that, like, if you run a campaign, like the way you always want to think about like the numbers and how to like kind of build on it and be able to do the testing properly and stuff is, and the reason why I say this is because if I test like pay per lead gen and you sell SEO, like I'm gonna generate way more leads with way less emails, right? So you can't say that the benchmark is like whatever the pay per lead one is, right? And so what you should do is run your first initial campaign, figure out what your reply rate is, figure out what your email to lead ratio is, figure out what your lead or contact to lead ratio is as well. And that becomes your baseline. And now your goal is with every new campaign that I launch, I want to beat the baseline. And that's how I think about it. It's like per every offer, it's completely different just because there's so many different variables, right? Like if we're both selling SEO, but I've worked with the biggest companies in the world and my company is, a Fortune 5,000, I'm just going to generate more results than you if you're, a new beginner in the space, right? And so like you just got to treat everything as like your first campaign as a baseline and figure out those three numbers that I mentioned. And then you just constantly just keep iterating on the campaign to figure out if you can beat that average. And the other thing to kind of keep in mind is like sometimes a lot of people make the mistake of trying to split test way too much to try to optimize a campaign. Like if you're selling an SEO offer, like let's say the baseline is like, you're getting a lead per every 500 emails that you send out. And you do a whole bunch of split testing and you can only drop that down by maybe like an extra 30 emails. Like you could do all that extra like split testing and all that extra testing, or you could just figure out how to like 5x that volume, right? And so that's what I always think about whenever it comes to like how to like strategically think about how to get a client's offer to just generate more leads.
Lovely. Cheers. Thank you for that. All right. We're gonna stick to some timelines. We're gonna get a few more questions and then we're gonna roll it in. All right, we're gonna get Sam, if you don't mind. Thank you, mate. Thank you for doing that. Let me just get you onto the spotlight first. And I'll just remove you from the spotlight. All right, if you could unmute yourself, Sam.
Yeah, Nick, I have a quick question for you. So you mentioned about Airtable, right? So getting your inbox data into Airtable. I'm doing something similar at the moment. And so we're looking for a 2 to 3% reply rate, right? And under a 2% bounce rate. But I was wondering, like, what's your thought process there with that with those data points? So you switch those inboxes every single campaign, or um, I guess my question is like, at what point are you like, okay, this inbox is just burned and we can't, put it back into rotation again? Do you have any metrics to go off of
Yeah.
to be like, okay, this domain is just burned and we can't use it anymore? Or
Yeah, great question. So when I usually take them out entirely is and like it it kind of depends, but like this is what I've noticed recently. So it's like if I have let's say group A, group B, right? Group A
Mhm.
works great first 30 days and then every single time I add it back into rotation, it has less of a lifetime. So like let's say in the first month the
Yeah.
campaign went for 4 weeks. By the time I launch it in campaign 3, it may only do good for about 3 weeks, right? And then I put it back on warm up. It kind of gets me another 2 weeks, right? And it just kind of keeps going
Mhm.
down in a staggered pattern like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
for most like general offers. I don't know if there's like a general baseline number that I look at. What we do is if we launch a campaign and within the first 24 hours, if it hasn't gotten above a 1% reply rate, we know immediately that's a deliverability issue. And then we'll swap in our
Mhm.
non-branded and our SMTP inboxes in
Mm.
if like the other set has already been used. If the other set hasn't been used, then we'll just rotate that one in immediately and see how that improves things. So that's kind of how I think about it. And then yeah, like we'll run an inbox placement test after every campaign is done. And if it's showing like burnt across the entire board, we'll just go ahead and delete that one and then start purchasing a new one so that that's able to go into warm up for another 30 days before it gets into the campaign. If that makes sense. But the
Nice.
goal is like
And
you just always have to have infra on the back end to just make sure you manage all this. And then there's one other point I wanted to make. I can't remember off the top of my head.
There's
yeah.
one thing that I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot. Oh, go ahead.
No, go on. Sorry.
I was gonna say like one thing I'm just seeing, maybe this is outside looking in here a little bit, but I see a lot of investment being made as like this group is a really advanced group in email. And that's why I don't get on like a lot of other webinars because of this. Like I get asked all the time for these webinars to talk about deliverability. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even going to join because it's not, you guys aren't really real about it and serious. So Smartlead is. But what I'm seeing is there's a lot of like really smart sort of technical minds that are on here, like in this go-to-market sort of engineering world. And I just hope that like a lot of you are starting to realize that and like becoming charging for that. Like that's the biggest thing I hear is like every time you have to switch these inboxes out, every time you have to go do R&D on what's going to get you back into the primary inbox, like the more you give away to the customer there and like kind of like brush under the rug and don't try to charge them for it, or like I'm not saying you're charging them every time, I'm saying you're building it into your pricing model. So what you have to be super careful of right now is this like gambling of these performance leads. Like it's a total gamble right now, and you have to charge them for the R&D that you're doing in this thing. Otherwise, you're literally just working for free, right? So that's why I say like the only time I've ever seen really like and by the way, Nick would be the only one that I've seen ever successful in this one is like this pay per lead model is just because he's just so good at it. Like that's and you know his ops game is just better than anybody's that I've seen. It's just like, but most agencies, I think you're gonna have a really hard time doing that. So I think you're going to want to charge more upfront. So you need some more technical people in your organization. If you're building an agency now, think of it more like you sort of have to charge as a sort of like an ISP, MSP, right? Like you have to be like almost like an IT MSP. Like that's the skill set that you're going to need to build and the capability that you're going to need to build. And you need to really start to understand that's transitioning. That's why you got to get rid of some of these sort of like performance, let them go to some other agency. You're not losing anything. No one is competing on this call. Like there's not enough people that can do what you're doing right now. And you need to charge more upfront, more setup. Like this is a lot of R&D we're talking about here and testing. And I've spent a lot of time on it. So I know like what it takes to go test this stuff. And it's all time intensive because you need it to go over time. And that's where it's really a bottleneck. So if you're doing all this R&D, make sure you charge people accordingly when you're talking about your offer and take less clients, charge them more because that's where it's going right now, right? It's not more clients, it's less. If you're really paying attention, a lot less customers. And it's a lot less customers with more upfront spend.
That's a fair call. All right. We'll just take one more. I know everyone's got a chat, so we'll take 1 2 more questions. We got Daniel over here, so we will kick off. Daniel, if you don't mind unmuting yourself. All right, floor's yours.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you guys have like any Chinese or Japanese clients that do email, cold email in Japanese or Chinese? How do you find the industry in those countries? And I do know that China has some pretty strict anti-spam laws. So I guess that's something that probably affects the industry. And yeah, that's it.
I actually do not have any clients in China or Japan, so I can't really speak on that. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any advice for you there.
Jesse, on you, anything from there?
Yeah, no.
Sorry, mate. Well, thank you, Daniel. So that's a neat question. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
All
Thanks for the question.
then we got an easy question, so we'll take one more. We're gonna get Samuel, and Sam's gonna ask you to unmute yourself, and I'm gonna add your spotlight. Just go for it, mate.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Just a quick question. When you rotate inboxes, do you restart the campaign with new inboxes or you just add new inboxes to the campaign in progress or removing the old ones?
Yeah, so we're just adding it into the current one because usually we'll identify this within the first 24 hours. And so, whenever you add the leads in, or it just hasn't reached out to enough leads in that campaign in that first 24 hours for it to be more than 4% done. And so the rest of the campaign gets to be hit with brand new inboxes. And so I'm happy with that. And actually, question for V, how's the associate mailbox function work? I think I'm supposed to click that, but I don't know if I do.
Are you referring to the one in the top right corner
in the campaign? Yeah.
Yeah, the associate mailbox helps you basically rotate mailboxes if you've got any dead leads, or if you want to go ahead and, but I don't know which feature. There's a lot of it over there, but you can associate a mailbox if it's disconnected. You can associate a mailbox if it is not mapping through, or you can also go ahead and rotate mailboxes if you have a bunch of dead leads and you want to sort of refresh the mailbox cycle. So that's what you're probably referring to. There's 3 options over there, Nick. But yeah, That's it. Reassociate leads. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I hope that helps. Thanks, Samuel. Alrighty. Well, everyone, this has been fabulous. If you have questions, I apologize. We're going to have these questions dropped in the Slack channel. Please put it over there. And I assure you we're going to get the questions answered as soon as we can as well. Thank you so much for your time. And I genuinely appreciate everyone popping in over there. There's a lot of questions. And yes, the Slack chat will be given for the free offer for everyone over here. So if you don't mind dropping the Slack channel as well as the thread, all you have to do is respond to the thread with your email address. That is a Smartlead email address that you're signed up, and we're going to give you 10 lucky winners who stay back over here. 12,000 email verification credits each, and 10 of you one smart server each. Any passing comments for getting this incredible group together? Any sort of passing notes, Jesse, you'd like to mention before we call the day, and what people want to go ahead and should do to prepare themselves?
Yeah, just starts with really getting the right emails in there, right? Don't trust, you got to find who you trust out there. I'm not even, do a waterfall yourself, but I'd be very careful. The only like catch-all, like true catch-all verification, like it's Nick, right? Like with in terms of like, because he's actually emailing the people, right? It takes, if you're getting an answer back that it's catch-all verified right away, it means you can't do that, right? Like that's just not, it's just there's still a difference. Like even I know every advanced, like somebody's gonna debate me on this because I know there's stuff out there, but we could talk about that if you really want to boil it down. But it's still, you got to go after the valid emails first, right? The pure valids, and then you got to use good sources. We have our own, and that's why we have a catch-all valid, and that's what people are doing. Email valid emails first. It's going to mean a lot more, and hold the vendors accountable. Just because they offer a 5% guarantee doesn't, or like whatever, money back, no one's going to ever go refund an email finder. You'd have to be really desperate in life to do that. So, that's why they offer those guarantees, because it's a weak way to do it. So validate those emails and find the right ones with the right vendors.
Fair enough. And Nick, yourself, sir.
Yeah. Final endings. Just send more emails. Stop overcomplicating it. Simplify your things, and everything will kind of work itself out. I think volume is literally that thing that trumps all. As long as you can figure out how to like consistently get better at the fundamentals and just consistently build the systems and processes that allow you to execute the fundamentals at a high level, like most of these things and most of these tips, like you just kind of have to ride the waves and it'll kind of work itself out. And just keep using Smartlead. Trust Smartlead. Like they have a pretty good engineering team. I know this firsthand from having to literally shelf an email tool that we built for 2.5 years. And yeah, like they've been in the space long enough. I wouldn't trust any new person in the space. Not because they can't like succeed, but like I just wouldn't put like our 200 plus clients in the hands of somebody that just popped up. I want someone that's established, that's been in the space for a while, and that I could trust. Like they have more data than anybody. They'll be able to fix things quicker than anybody. And so that's kind of why I put all my trust with V and Smartlead.
Hey, thank you for that completely unpaid shout out. I love it. Cheers. Thank you, Nick.
Go clip it, run an ad on it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna run an ad on it. Why not? Thanks, man. You're the best. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful week. See you all next week. For all that we know, there's 3 constants in life: death, taxes, and office hours every Thursday. Thank you all. Chat soon. Thank you, Nick, for that time that you've given us. Thank you, Jesse, for the time you've given us. Everyone, the courses are live in Smartlead University. Our Nick is right and about speaking through all the wisdom that you want to run your own agency. Check it out. It's live popping, and got a lot of good energy from everyone who's watched it as well. So thank you. Have a beautiful day. And yes, the recording will be sent to you in our Slack and YouTube channel very soon. If not, send hate mail to Swapno. Thank you. Have a good day all. Bye-bye.